Welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace. Today I have with me Big T. Big T comes from a long line of great podcasters out of a special area that I'm in as of right now called the DMV. The DMV is DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I'm a native actually of Virginia, so I always tell everybody don't get the misconception that I'm from West Virginia. I just rep West Virginia because I live there. So, Big T, please tell us about your podcast and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey JR, man, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. My podcast, I can't make this up. I can't, with a K, make this up podcast. It actually was inspired by another show that I saw a couple years ago called Righteous and Ratchet. And, what I saw was, two best friends talking about everyday topics and just having fun. It didn't look like work. And that inspired me to create my platform, where I bring on my guests and pretty much talk about what they got going on and try to have, a good conversation that, with the exchange of information, I hope to pass down to somebody else and, help them with everyday life.
All right, now let's dig a little deeper into this because, like, I mean, you got star power because you get some of the best independent podcasters out there, and you get other people involved with your show. You have countless guests on, and you kind of like me. You work and you do your shows, and you kind of stockpile them, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you keep them going because, and that's one thing I like because even we've already done an episode, and it's in the vault right now to whenever you decide to release it.
Hmm.
But it's crazy. What gave you like what made you outside of that like the name of your podcast? But what made you start podcasting?
Well, my desire to be independent and become a true entrepreneur, I'm taking the journey right now, but I'm in the first steps, is what I like to call phase one. And with that, everything takes practice. Everything takes ups and downs. So me starting with my show that I call my baby, you know what I'm saying, is along the lines of what I want to call the conglomerate that I plan on building one day. I want to, in the end, umbrella everything under Landover Legend Studios, where it's going to be consistent of, retail, entertainment, radio, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So the sky's is the limit, as of right now.
Okay, now look, now you just brought up something Landover. Now people don't notice behind the scenes, but me and you were pretty good friends. Like we talk, chop it up here and there, had some pretty lengthy conversations, and we talked about the illustrious Landover Mall.
Hmm.
Now, mind you, I told you a little story about my upbringing. I come from the middle of Virginia, so when I would come up and visit my family out there in PG County, shout out to Suitland, Marlow Heights, and them different areas like out there. Um, my aunt lived in Laurel, so she would skip over to the Landover Mall, and the Landover Mall, it no longer exists, correct?
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and it was one of those things like before you got to the Landover Mall, it used to be this store called Woolworth or something like that. I think that's the name of it. We would
Hmm.
go in Woolworth and you could get a little something out of there. But when you went to the Landover Mall, the only other mall that was in comparison back then was the Iverson Mall. And the Landover to me shut that down. So that's like one thing that connected us there. And I was like, man, I wonder one day if somebody would do a podcast on the Landover Mall. Because it doesn't seem like anything now, like when you really think back on it, but it was probably one of the better malls. I mean, I know you got Pentagon City and different things like that now, but as a child, even Landover Mall had a special place, right?
Landover Mall was the monument, and even the space where it existed is still there. That it held memories and it created a lot of, stories, whether it was good or bad. I mean, it stayed in the news, not all good, but it stayed in the news. It was one of those places where you can go to the movies, grab you a pair of J's, and at the same time hang out with your friends, all within the span of 2 hours. It was right around the way.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I'll tell you the one thing, I had these Air Max 120s. They look like the sun was on them. And I got them, and then I got like these aqua looking blue, purplish colored 120s. Because in Virginia, in the central part where I'm from in Lynchburg, we wear Air Maxes, but y'all had fresher shoes than what we had down there. Like it would take us a month and a half to get shoes that y'all would get there. So my aunt would go get the shoes And back then we had shipping and stuff, but she would actually run them down on a weekend tip. And I would have the freshest shoes going to school. And I wasn't so much into Jordans or anything, but every Air Max, I'm talking about even back to like when I had the Pippins and all that other stuff, the black and white ones with the little thing on top of them. Every pair of shoes that I got was fresh that came from the Landover Mall. But let's dig into this podcast. Now, first off, this is why I really wanted to have you on, and I've been trying to figure a time to get you to come on, and I'm glad that you were able to come on today. Was this when you first look at your podcast, and I said the word look, you see artwork. Tell me about that artwork. How did you get that artwork set up for your podcast?
Fiverr, the app Fiverr. Somebody put me on to it last year and told me, I could reach out to, random people and, get some custom artwork done. So my vision was, I don't want to just do like something I could put together on my computer. I wanted something unique and something, dope. So I actually, looked for a couple artists and I looked for the style of work that I wanted. I sent them over a couple of, drafts or whatever and told them what I had envisioned and they created that. So the dope thing about that is one of the artists that I used for that particular one, he's in Malaysia and he did the job for like I think it was like $30 or something like that. And he's real skilled. So I would rather, reach out to somebody who's trying to get it out the mud like you or I, opposed to paying top dollar for somebody who probably wouldn't have did what I wanted to that scale and do redraws and things of that nature.
Right, because I mean, when you see it like that, the animation is enticing, and that's one thing that I always tell podcasters. There's two different people. There's you, and then there's me. Me, I got that Microsoft Paint looking cover art, and you got to actually go past the cover art to get entertained. But with yours, when you see that artwork, that's one thing that I tell people that separates podcasts. When you see the artwork, you're ready to dive in. You don't have to do nothing but just post that up when they see you with the studio behind you. Bam, it's over with. Now, let's get into more of the harder details inside of podcasting. Because I'd like to address these things with you because you are what we call a success. And we measure success like this, and everybody wants to say this and that about people not being successful. But I'll say this: anytime that you want to do a show or have anybody on your show, you can get them. The sky's the limit on that. Just whoever you want. What made you start off with a professional setup that you got?
I mean, I appreciate you calling it professional, but I call it, you know, really beginners. I articulate it like this. I wanted to do something different, but I'm also, brand new in this world. I'm only a little over a year in. So I try to create something that, you know, fit my personality, something sleek, unique, and something that, wasn't too off the wall. But when you look at it, you pay attention to it because of how it's formulated. So I think that that's ideal when it comes to, keeping people, you know, focusing on your content and actually paying attention and realizing that, it took some time and effort to make this happen.
Right. And the quality of sound of your podcast, that's one thing that I try to get to everybody. Because the one thing that we have a misconception in this business is like everybody knows me. They know I'm a Yeti man. I got like 3, 4 Yeti mics.
Hmm.
And the only reason I use Yeti mics is because obviously we know I travel everywhere. I'll be in Virginia this week. Next week I'll be in Kalamazoo. And when I do podcasts with people in the future and stuff, and even what I do with my members of West Virginia Commonplace, these mics hooked into a little dongle or whatever, I can have 3 mics, and we all know that Yetis have condensers inside of them, and or the major thing, an interface built in. So yeah, I'm gonna get a crisp sound, but your sound is a step above and beyond the rest out there. Like, could you tell people a little bit about your setup? Because here's the thing that I try to stress to people: as you're making your way up through your podcast, your sound has to start reflecting in a different way. Because even I learned that I couldn't sit there with that little $30 Samson mic that I had all the time that clipped
Hmm.
on my laptop. I couldn't sit there and just keep using that and thinking that people were going to continuously, they would take me at a certain level, but they weren't going to take me any seriouser or serious than what I was, for the simple fact that my sound was trash. It was horrible. It sounded like intergalactic, So so
Ultron.
yeah, Voltron and stuff. So I was kind of like, when I heard your stuff, I was like, man, this dude's stuff is polished. Could you tell us a little bit about the mic you use, and everything that's going around that mic?
Well, I mean, it's a standard condenser mic, but I made sure that I didn't just spend $50 on the mic. I spent, a little over $100 for it. So that way I know that I'm not just buying something on Amazon because it got a bunch of stars on it. I actually researched the mic to work for the area that I'm working in and also with the computer that I'm working with as well. Everything has to blend in that. And then also the area, like the actual space that I'm working in, I actually have things closed off and soundproofing on the wall to, help with echo and things of that nature. So, once you do that and you actually like, you're not just recording from a laptop speaker, then you can control the echo and you can control the sound reverberation in the area that you're recording. So that way, if anything's going on outside that space, it won't get picked up on your mic when your mic is as strong as the one I got or the other you have.
Yeah, and it was like so much I learned more stuff about it because like messing with that little Samson, it may have had the different cardio things or whatever they're called. But this one I had to learn about the gain and how to like because I turn it down and it silences out everything. My co-host, she could be in the room doing whatever she's doing, and we talking right now, and
Mm-hmm.
you never hear a sound out of her. Um, and my question to you is this. So you use XLR mics, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
use USB.
No.
All right. Have you experienced both of those?
Yeah, I actually started with USB mics. So, and at first, when I started, I was just doing audio, but I noticed that I was just throwing stuff out there just to put it out there. But then I started getting comments, on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and they was telling me what my problem was, and I would go off those comments and, learn as I was going. Then I realized I got to stop being cheap and actually, step my game up if I want a particular sound. I don't want to be jealous of another person's sound or anything. I gotta, do what's best for my brand, and that's what I decided to do.
And I appreciate that because like I've even gone deep because I know like we keep up with what each other is doing. I had to jump on these guys about lives because I found that the USB mic, I can take a phone
Mm.
and use that little converter that I've been showing everybody. And you can use a mic in a live episode because I hear these. That's one thing I wanted to ask you about. Like, um, and hearing different episodes, what is something that like if you listen to another person's podcast, what is something that turns you off to that podcast?
Um, I guess you could say the sound quality sometimes, but depending on what I'm doing, I more pay attention to the subject matter opposed to the sound quality because I've been there. You could be, listening to or watching like some of your favorite shows or whatever on YouTube or whatever, and like if somebody's on Zoom or whatever, and the other person's having, technical issues, what I'm saying? You know that eventually it'll probably clear up and it may not, but if you like the content, you'll deal with it, and hopefully, they'll fix it because enough people make comments about it. So, really depending on the subject matter is whether I'll click off or not.
Okay. And Big T, I need to ask you this. All right. So contributing to the future fledgling podcasters, give us some insight and some advice on things that they should do starting off that you didn't do.
What I didn't do starting off is I didn't do all the research necessary. I assumed that all it took was, one audio interface, a couple of mics, and two people having a conversation to make a show work. And that's not true. And then I also assumed that, just putting something out there and people will accept it if the subject matter is good. But when you get enough people critiquing your show and it's just, somebody who doesn't know you from Adam, then you got to take it as an honest, truthful opinion about what they're saying. So my thing is don't just jump out there and stay out there. Once you bump your head a couple times, learn to weave when it comes to making mistakes and things of that nature. And also, learn to do everything as much as you can by yourself before you start reaching out for help or anything like that. Because especially when you building up your platform like you or I, what I'm saying, you can't always depend on somebody to make a meeting or make an interview or things of that nature. Try to be well rounded and versed so you're not also relying on somebody to make your production go well.
Okay, and I can appreciate that because like I said, even in this case, we had a scenario where because you had a good availability today, I was able to get you. You were able to bless me on the show. Now, inside of podcasting, we all make mistakes, and I'll tell you like one that I don't talk about much. I did truly, and I've been talking about a lot of here. I truly did make the mistake when it came to buying mics and stuff because I realized that I was going to always be on the go. I'm never going to be home because I work 10 months out of the year in a different city, different state, whatever.
Hmm.
But I wanted to produce a podcast. So I looked at everything later and I was like, okay, I know I'm going to have to use a USB mic because an XLR setup would be kind of heavy to carry everywhere, you
Hmm.
know, because you got to have interface and everything like that. And I was like, man, I really want to get an interface one day. And I said, I'll definitely sit down and talk to somebody that knows stuff about it, somebody like you. Um, so I go through that. I have the mic issues. I move over to Yeti. I don't look back anymore. I learned that you actually talk into the mic. You don't talk away from the mic, and get that going.
Hmm.
And I started getting better quality content out there, and or better sound. So it makes even the crappy content sound good because some of that stuff I put out is not fire. We did talk about that earlier. Now,
Hmm.
diving into your show, can you let the audience know your top 5 episodes?
My top 5 episodes.
Yes, that's one of these cliffhangers I throw in there. Cause see, I gave you a little script, and I give everybody a little script of what you think I'm gonna ask, and you looked at the questions that I get sent you, and I didn't ask you not one of those questions.
Yeah, that's true. So, when you get asked a question like that, you kind of make it seem like you're biased towards an actual guess. But, my answers aren't going to be biased towards the guess. It's just how I felt about the conversations that I had with these particular people.
Okay,
So, um, uh, my interview with Dale P, that was a dope conversation. And the length of the show shows how good the conversation was. Um, my first ever episode that went on for about 2.5 hours with a friend of mine's. Uh, that's in my top 5.
okay,
Uh, Also, one that actually hasn't aired yet, and actually just recorded this on Saturday. Actually, a young man by the name of Andrew Durning, who's over in Scotland, and we had connected on Twitter, and I had him on the show, and we talked about his life. And his show, I believe, is called the Mental Ginger podcast.
okay.
Yeah, and he reminded me so much of Bill Burr. He even imitated me on the show, which had me in tears laughing. So I can't wait. I can't wait for that one to come out. Another one I had was with a newly acquired friend of mine's, Doobie the Don,
Okay,
where outside of us just being on live roasting each other, we actually sat down and had a conversation about his background and everything. And he's a real reserved person, but over the span of that interview, what I'm saying, I got an insight and I realized, what I'm saying, he's kind of like me in a way because, we both reserved and we choose our words wisely when it comes to just, speaking about our life.
right. And see, that's one thing I like about you because it doesn't matter what's going on in the political space and podcasts and on Instagram, you always stay up and narrow. You don't really see your 2 cents that much out there. You put some stuff out there, but you stay good and you watch everybody's live. You do all that stuff, and you're good for the community. And you congratulate you give people their flowers at the same time. So that's one thing I do want to tell you. Thank you. Now, there comes a segment in my show because growing up, I paid homage to 2020, the news magazine. Uh, you had John Stossel, you had Diane Sawyer, then you had Barbara Walters. And
Hmm.
Barbara Walters was stone cold. She had questions that hit the point and get you going at 10:40 at night. till about right at like 10:57. Sometimes she run over to 11:05, and when she ran over to 11:05, I knew I was gonna have a good Saturday because she was spitting fire. One thing that she always did was she took someone outside of their character, brought them back into their character, and made a new character at the end of the interview. So here you go, you're on the hot seat now. Okay, now, Big T, if there's something that you could improve about your podcasting experience and your views, what would that be?
Improve about my podcasting. Um,
Yeah, like your experience or anything. Like, what would you, what would you improve on? What would you work on? What would you get sharp now
hmm,
to be on
getting
point
rid,
like Steve Nash?
getting rid of the word
Um, um,
if it,
um.
yeah, that happens, and it's when it's been in your vocabulary as a how can I say, it's a not a defense mechanism, but it's almost like a stopgap so a person can, find the right words to come up with next. So my brain is always thinking, and when I think, it matriculates thoughts in seven different directions. And by that I mean I could be having this conversation with you, and I could also be thinking about, some math equation that somebody said early, and I'm trying to figure that out at the same time. So, trying to prevent myself from thinking so hard while I'm actually conducting business with my show will be something that I would want to, correct.
Okay. Now let's dig a little deeper. Now, give us a typical day of recording for you. How does it start and how does it end?
Well, all my quotings are, set up at least a week to 2 weeks in advance, and I usually try to do about at least three a week, just so I'm never without content. And then also using all this time to sharpen my skills and make more connections because out of anything that I've gotten from doing this show, it's meeting new people and learning new things about different areas and these people's walks of life that I've got to learn over the past year. So, for me, I got everything set up. I make sure that the information is correct. I make sure that the links set out, and I make sure that everything's set up audio and visual wise on my end. And then the process begins of me just talking to the person and wherever we exchange certain information prior to actually recording, I make sure that's up front and I make sure the atmosphere is cool so I can get the best conversation out of the interview because it isn't about me creating clickbait or nothing like that. It's about us having real conversations about, what they have going on. And if we decide to go off subject, that's fine too. But, as long as we keep within that realm, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Now here's a deep question. We record episodes and we get a certain level, you attain a certain amount of listeners and stuff. When did this change from a hobby to a business, or did it always start as a business?
You know, in the beginning, you have high hopes for anything that you create. So I realized that there was potential in what I was doing, but I didn't actually, start making the right moves to make, you know, uh, monetary plays when it came to my show. So these are all things I learned through trial and error or just simply reading. People like you and I, people of color by that, I mean, we don't always read those fine details or instructions. So I made sure that I started doing that because people was telling me, hey, are you creating ads for this or are you reaching out to these people to possibly start generating some revenue? And I'm like, no, I didn't even know. So now that's what I'm doing. So through that and through me improving my technique, improving my time management skills, I'm able to make these things happen. I looked at my analytics the other day, and I think I'm in 30 different countries now compared to 5 months ago. I think I was just in 10. So it shows the progress and the progression in what I'm doing.
Right. And see, that's one thing that like I always like to hear people that get that business oriented sense I love people that want to do this as a hobby and different things like that. And I like people that are taking those steps to get there. But the one thing that you said that rings and should stick with everyone is not a lot of people read. If
Hmm.
a lot of people would read and just not necessarily take somebody's word for it, but read it and say, show me the analytics, show me that science that has a result to it. Then you can see more. Then you can go out and get the ads, you can get the sponsors and this and that. And that's something that scares me with some episode, with some not episodes, some shows, because I listen to a lot of content and people come for a lot of advice. And I tell somebody to think of it like this, and you probably might agree with this. There's a guy named Howard Stern. Howard Stern had the most crude, rude show on the radio. He had strippers, he had people of all walks of life on there. And what was the one major thing that they did with him? They marketed his stuff. They said they did the movie Private Parts. They
Hmm.
said this is explicit content. Be careful. Just like Jerry Springer, be careful. And some of the lewd content that I hear in podcasts, there's no warning label on it. I see a picture of Alice in Wonderland, and then I listen to it, and then it's some demonic episode about torturing her and the bunny rabbit with a spindle wheel ripping their arms off. And I tell these people, you can't market that to the next person or anything like that. So my question to you is this: do you think with certain content that all content is marketable?
You got to know who your consumer is if you're going to market something. You can't just put something out there. That's why, platforms like OnlyFans was created, you know, or, Patreon. You know that there's certain limitations that can't go in, popular sites that's going to show your media or whatever that you're putting out there. So do your research. Just don't assuming putting an explicit warning label on something is going to work. And then another thing, people don't know who their true core audience is. Like you might have some people that'll dive in to your content, but do you know who your focus is for, and are you making content for them? Of course, anyone can pay attention and anyone can like your content, but the people that really focusing on you, that tune in every week, or how often you post or whatever the case may be, like that's what you got to understand. And then once you understand that, then you can know where you can take it. So if you're going to go left field from your weekly or your daily post or whatever that you put out there, then you say, hey, I'm going to go deep on this one. If you want to listen or watch or whatever, check it out here. You can't just put whatever, because that's when you get that yellow band on uh, YouTube, or you get your post took down on TikTok or Instagram, and you can pretty much do whatever, but you can't post the whole show on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I wholeheartedly understand that. Now here's our big one: consistency. I learned just a few weeks ago while I was taking my break or whatever. I kept promising a certain type of episode, right? And as a part of a series I do, not for the men, it's for the females, the love series I do.
Hmm.
And it could be for whoever, really, it doesn't matter. But I put that out there, and that's not my normal, that's my Saturday listen. That is not your Thursday or Tuesday listen when I'm putting out 3 shows. And I brought it out on a Tuesday or Thursday, thinking it was going to do something, and that bad boy tanked. I mean, it went so bad that I had to take it off for a few minutes and try to re-edit it, and then look, I put it back out on there. Luckily, you're able to pull stuff like that, and I had to go back in and tighten it up in certain areas because I was getting those little verbal messages. I got like 30 of them, and people were just like, "Hey, this is shit. This is crap. Get this shit off of here. Fix it. Put it back on." So I went and did that. So that being said, what would be your advice to people about consistency? Because everybody has their own deal with it. And I say this: if you're consistent and I do 3 episodes every week or however many I do, at least as long as I do two, because I do 2 episodes a week,
Hmm.
that takes care of both sides of my audience, my A side audience and my B side audience. So, what is your take on consistency in podcasting?
Well, if you're speaking from a professional standpoint, then there should be no excuse or anything that interferes with your growth. So, when it comes to building your brand and being consistent means, staying on top of yourself no matter how tired or whatever else you got going on. You got to make this happen. Even if it's late, You got to make it happen. So don't be that person that says, "Hey, I'll be dropping this on Tuesday," and it doesn't come out till Friday. You know what I'm saying? Because that way, when you're inconsistent, your audience will be inconsistent. And if it's you talking about your personal life, then you're gonna have to straighten some things up if you're not consistent in that, because that's gonna mess up any type of professional, endeavors you decide to pursue. So, get on it and be on it. Lead by I'll say lead by example. Look for inspiration in someone else, and don't be admiring them, but be encouraged by them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Now, Big C, let's do this real quick. It's something that we do on the show on the main drag. It's called the shameless plug. And we do this because we have listeners that come in at different times. And at the very beginning of the show, we did not necessarily plug everywhere they can find you at. So real quick, take the floor and let everybody know where they can find you, how they can interact with you, how they can get a cameo appearance or whatever, or a video shout out, how they can reach you.
Well, mostly you can reach me on Instagram at I can't make this up underscore pod, and that's I can't with a K. Feel free to hit me in the DMs. If you're not on there, you can hit me on Twitter. I can't make this U1. I'm also on Facebook. I can't make this up podcast, and you can email me. You can email me at ikmtupodcast@gmail.com. So, if you're listening right now, don't be afraid to hit me up, and, let's get something on the schedule.
Okay. Now I appreciate that. Now we dive a little bit deeper in with what's going on with you. So here's the thing. Um a new audience is going to hear you, just a little different audience
Hmm.
on this episode. So plug in the new listener that's going to listen to your episode after this goes off the air. Give
Okay.
them the advertisement that they need to know that they want to listen to your show and they want to hit that subscribe button.
What's up, everybody? I'm the Landover Legend, aka Big T. I'm the host of the I Can't Make This Up podcast. And this is an open platform where I bring on my guests and we discuss what they got going on, whether they be a chef, an author, actor, video vixen, whatever. I'm all about, having a conversation and, getting their life story, and at the same time, hopefully sharing some information I think that help the next person. Let's get out of doing the same old monotonous, real housewife stuff, and let's have real conversations about some stuff that's going to help our fellow man.
Okay. And I like that one because that was just right there. That's what I needed to hear. That was a perfect promo there. So if you need help with your promos, this is the guy to come to. He'll have his consulting business up and running in a day or so that he can help you with promos or anything like that. That's one other thing inside the business. I always tell people, um, inside information and from polished people like you, and I said the word polished. You've worked your craft, you've worked your art, and you got yourself a name. People know Big T. We talk about you in different circles when we're talking about certain things that you can learn in podcasting. A simple level of intimacy that is brought to you by being genuine in how you speak. You don't change your accent. You don't grab on the extra things to make your voice sound different. I didn't hear you say Mo. I didn't hear you say any of them DC terminologies. You just kept it straight Merlin, because it ain't Maryland. You kept it straight Merlin with everybody, so people can hear that authenticity in your voice. So that's something that I want you to keep doing, and this is part of your testament here too. And here it goes deeper inside your podcast episodes. Like you can hear, you do that Barbara Walters to a degree. You really do that Tavis Smiley thing, and the Tavis Smiley thing. I don't know if you remember Tavis Smiley.
Yeah, I do.
Is you brighten someone's character. Like we'll take for instance Adele P. Shout out to him, the Man Cave, and the tour that he's on right now. You can compare your episode to mine because we don't do apples and oranges and stuff like that. But it
Hmm.
was a different level of conversation with you two. It kept going and flowing, and you bring that out and a guest on your show, and that's something I want to commend you on and I want to thank you for because you give more perspective to the guest, even if they're somewhere else. But I'm saying you give them more perspective. And it's hard to do that with a guest because some guests are one dimensional. but you make them 4D. And that's no disrespect to DLP. I'm just saying, as far as their content and different things like that, you open them up a little bit more, you get the better answers out of them. So that's one thing I want to commend you on and say, tap your shoulder on that and keep doing that. The next thing is the positivity that you put inside the community. Like you're not out here jaw jacking about this one and that one, because we do have a lot of podcast wars for real. Like it'd be some real gangster shit going on. And I'm like, these dudes, you know how Meek and them was talking about Twitter fingers and all this other stuff. We got real Instagram thugs out here. And you don't get caught up in none of that. Everybody knows you as a peacemaker. It doesn't matter if it's the East Coast, West Coast. One of the brighter shows you did was with a young lady that I did not get the chance to work with, and I hope that everything is still all right with her, is Carla. I want to give her a big shout out too, because I heard y'all's episode. That's what dug me in. I'm like, Carla's on point. So Carla, wherever you are right now, shout out to you. Now, Big T, the last thing before I let you go, because I know you got a busy schedule. And me and you both know it's 9 o'clock on the East Coast. And if you got to go get something to eat or do something, you got to do it before 10 o'clock, because we ain't got enough workers out here to make food. Is this, what is going to be your lasting impression on podcasting when you leave this realm and you decide to go over into more? Because when you do a conglomerate, you got to hand somebody else the keys to the Cadillac, and you got to move up to the Escalade, to the Lamborghini and the Porsche. So what is going to be your lasting impression in podcasting?
My hopes is that I'm never looked at as just a one-dimensional person. People assume that, based off my demeanor, that I'm one thing when truly I'm not. So I hope that, we get to a point to where, somebody could actually, click play on any one of my videos or one of my audio recordings and be like, okay, I didn't expect that. That's dope. I appreciate that. And not only do I appreciate that, I didn't know that, or what I'm saying, I've been through that and I thought I was the only one. Like really help somebody, whether it's me telling a story about being drugged by a girl or something like that, because everyone has their ups and downs in life.
Yes.
But not everybody, what I'm saying, talks about it. Those real conversations that happens at a barbershop, they never make it to social media. So that's my goal, is to flip that around, because people could talk all day about, like you were saying earlier about, podcasters who beefing and stuff like that. But is it really affecting you at the end of the day?
No.
Like, is it taking money out your pocket? It may be attention grabbing, and a lot of people gravitate towards messy, and that's cool. Outside of your everyday life, if someone ran over your kid, or you got hit in the face with a squirrel or something like that, hey, I need a distraction from that. That squirrel fucked me up. What I'm saying? I'm sorry for cussing, but
That's all good.
yeah, so that's my goal. My goal is to make my reality help your reality be a little bit more normalized compared to anything else that you hear and you think that's possibly made up, or just something to get along with, something that actually you can retain and find useful and pass along to the next person, so hopefully it'll do the same thing for them.
Thank you once again. Now, audience, once again, check out Big T. Check out his podcast. Check out his statements. Check out his mottos. Check out his forum. This is JR from West Virginia Commonplace.
And I am Big T, aka the Landover Legend.
And thank you for being part of this Podcast Collide episode. This will be hitting you guys soon. And just like I do for every podcaster that comes on this show, Big T will be writing the show notes for this episode. So everything he wants you to know about him, he'll be sending to me, and I'll put them in there, and we'll put the necessary links in there so you can get in touch with him. And once again, everybody, this has been a Podcast Collide episode. These things happen because podcasting is amazing. And podcasters, when we find a median, and that's every person I've done a Podcast Collide episode with, we find an equal ground. They become a friend of mine in real life. It ain't like this, I'm going to just shoot you a DM. This man got my real number in real life. He could FaceTime me, not at certain times because I got to do not disturb him, but this man can really call me if he needed something. He ain't nothing but a few miles away right now if something were to go down. So I want you guys to understand that it's more to podcasting than this this. I'm gonna DM somebody and get them for an episode and stuff like that. It's real life. If he needed to talk to me about something, we're gonna talk outside of this business because it's more to podcasting than just that. So once again, audience, please tune into Big T's show, tune into mine, definitely tune into this podcast, and we will see you later.